Hey guys, Grindhead Jim here with a bit of a different video than you might be used to. You've seen me do retro gaming collection stuff like the game grinds. Certainly have heard me talk about Destiny a lot. Obviously, we've been talking about weight loss and so forth, which is going well, by the way. But now I am actually getting back into toy collecting for the first time in really over 20 years, almost 30 to be perfectly blunt. Um, I had a massive toy collection when I was a kid, slowly got rid of it, some by choice, some by not. I mean, I've collected toys over the years, random things here and there, sometimes gifts given to me, things like that. But I've never had the itch to go toy hunting the way that I have been with retro video games. And even that is only about a 9-year-old hobby in and of itself for me. So this idea of me getting into toys on top of that for a while was something that I was actually fighting pretty hard. And recently, I really kind of just deep dove into a bunch of YouTube channels that are into this. Obviously, I've been into the toy chasers for a long time. They're friends of mine. I'm biased. It's a thing. But also, you have to look at channels like RetroBlasting, Toy Polloi, Analog Toys, and the list goes on, right? These channels just had an amazing virtual convention called Iconicon. So between some pre-Iconicon binging, some inspiration from that, and then the convention itself, I said, forget it. I'm just diving in wholeheartedly. It's happening. This is happening, right? But when you're a Gen Xer and you're looking to collect toys seriously for the first time since your childhood, there's a lot to think about. How much can I afford? What do I want? Why do I want it? Where am I going to put it? And a lot of other things. So let's jump right in. What I'm going to do is kind of ask these questions and then give you the answer that I came up with, because there's no version of what I'm doing that is guaranteed to work 100% for you. So with that in mind, you don't have to do it my way. There's no wrong way to collect as long as you're happy and you have food and shelter and all that stuff. I just want to share my journey with you and hopefully make you think a little bit on your perspective of collecting. The first thing was, well, what do I want to collect? What do I want? So I've been seeing a lot of different videos, whether it's G.I. Joe, Star Wars, Masters of the Universe, Transformers, Marvel stuff, kind of everything in between. There's just a ton of toys out there, right? But everything I just mentioned are more or less the stuff that I'm, at a glance, most interested in. But I quickly started eliminating certain properties based upon what I was seeing in terms of trends, things that I was looking at. So, for example, Star Wars, I love Star Wars. To this day, unapologetically. I had a huge toy collection of Star Wars when I was a kid. Had a lot of carrying cases. There were a few holes in the collection there that would be great to go back and fill. But looking at those collections, here is my issue. The old stuff is getting more expensive. The new issues of old toys aren't really up to par relative to their cost. If their cost were closer to what I remember, a couple bucks a figure, things like that, I'd be snapping them up like crazy. But because of the way it's being handled by the manufacturer, Hasbro, it's not appealing to me. It's too expensive for what I'm getting out of it. Now, contrast that with, say, Masters of the Universe Origins. That is a really cool toy line. You can find it in stores. The price is reasonable for what you're getting. It can mix and match with the retro stuff if you want to. But basically, I find that of all the modern toy lines, probably the one that is the best at both capturing old stuff while giving you something new, and the added bonus of being able to find it on the store shelf. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and collect those. I haven't started yet. I have not started yet. I've been looking around. I have a few things earmarked, but I'm going to be going to the Retropalooza Houston convention next weekend as a panel guest for the Game Chasers movie. And I talked to some vendors that are going to be there. They are bringing some stuff, and I've made some promises to some folks as to who I'm going to buy from first. Because I feel like to start a collection like that, especially something that's current, it felt to me, at least with one of these avenues I was going with, I wanted to be able to buy something from another human being in person. So the convention was a really convenient way to do that. So that's where that's starting. So Master of the Universe Origins, check. I'm also a huge fan of G.I. Joe. I watch guys like G.I. Joeberg and the aforementioned channels I was talking about before, with RetroBlasting and so forth, and looking at not just the G.I. Joe lines, but the Action Man and all the variants and everything. And it was kind of the same thing with Star Wars, where the older stuff isn't getting any cheaper. The new stuff that's coming out, some of it looks great at a glance, but either the prices are insanely high or I don't trust the companies putting them out. For example, there's these new G.I. Joe figures based on the cartoon versions of their design. And at a glance, they look wonderful. But their manufacturer has a long history of really poor quality control. Between that and the price tag, no way. This is not collectible. These are statues with joints. I don't buy statues. I don't. You know, I barely have 6 pops. Most of those were gifted to me. The only ones that I bought for myself were either an insanely good deal, I was like, I want to help somebody out, I bought them from a friend, or like my initial 2 pops. That's how I said to myself, I've already broken this promise, spoilers, I'm only going to buy 2 pop figures. I have a Godzilla one and a Spider-Man Homecoming one. And that's all I did for years. And then once in a while, someone would just gift me a pop. Like I have a Lemmy pop vinyl. In the other example I gave you, I have like a Predator one and Dutch Schaefer, because he was giving me buy one get one free. I was like, well, I want a Predator, so I'll take Dutch with him. Like, it's no big deal. But I have no passion for pop vinyls. I think that they are a really big waste of time, space, and money, mainly. But if I can get a good deal and it is a good sculpt, I'm not going to completely just say, no, there's no way. But I was that way for years. So I have just a couple. I would rather, but the thing is, after all of that, I would rather buy those than any of these new Joes that are coming out. They're just too expensive, and they're not getting everything right. Joe is just too out there for me right now. If the market changes and they start actually pulling their head out of their ass, yeah, I might start doing it. But that's off the docket. Like, because I know myself, I would want a lot of stuff. And most of the stuff that I really would love to do, you know, it's just way out of my price range, no matter how much I save up for it. So that's off the table. But similar circumstances, but by no means as bad, is the Marvel Legends series. Okay, I find those generally to be of a decent value. Most of the sculpts are great. The figures tend to more or less stay at market value, and if you're patient, you can find the characters at a good price in retail, online, that sort of thing. So that one is remaining somewhat tenable and is something I really want to collect. And I have some examples of that I want to show you that I'm starting off with my collection and so forth. So now I know what I want to collect. How much do I want to spend? Well, I've kind of covered that in as much as I want to stay close to retail price as I can. If I can get below that, perfect. If I have to pay a little bit more, it's not so bad if I know it's going to be in really good shape when I get it. So, you know, I don't want to go out and pay like $100 for 1 or 2 figures. I really don't want to do that. There's very few characters I can think of that would be worth it. You know, like I talked about Transformers before, just in passing. I told myself, if I'm buying Transformers, there's only one I'm going to buy. I know which one it is, and I'm not telling you except to say that your bargaining posture is highly dubious. If you can read between the lines, you know who I'm trying to find at a good price, which is not easy. Because Transformers is the same slippery slope. Although I would say it's somewhere in the middle between the Star Wars, G.I. Joe, and the Marvel Legends kind of thing, where you could probably get away with it. But to get a good collection, even of the newer reissues, which are very cool, they're just too expensive for what I'm going to get out of them. So at this point, I'm more or less sticking to Marvel Legends and similar properties in the same scale, Masters of the Universe Origins and some similar properties in the same scale, and then the third one of the trifecta, and this is where you guys are probably going to jeer at me in the comments for being a hypocrite already, and it's Superpowers collection. Some of the most expensive toys on the market. They're notoriously hard to come by, in good condition, without you getting, you know, an arm and a leg chopped off for them, right? But I have a very, 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 very deep emotional connection to the first run from '84. My parents bought me the entire line, including vehicles, except for Brainiac. We got Brainiac a couple months later on a random find in a store, and I had the whole line. And it was one of the coolest feelings. The first time I ever completed a collection. Because to me, it's not like I have to buy everything until the series is done. I like to collect what I feel is complete. But that was the first time I was ever compelled to just get everything that they sold. And I had it. And it was one of the coolest feelings. So that is something I want to do. I want to get the entire first run, and then a smattering of other figures from later in the cycle. So, but that one's going to take a long time. I'm going to be picky. I'm going to pick my battles. Like, I'm not going to go boxed for any of that stuff, with the possible exception of the Hall of Justice, which I know is like, well, that's the most expensive thing pretty much, unless you're buying Cyborg, you know, which I'm not. Spoilers. The reason I want a boxed Hall of Justice is because when that Christmas, when they gave them to me, everything was assembled and in front of their boxes, even their card backs. Like all the figures were on card backs still. All the vehicles and the playset, however, were all in front of or on top of their boxes. It was a really cool display, and my father later told me how much care and how long it took him to do that, because he loved Christmas so much, because he worked really hard with what he was doing in the military to provide for us, and made a lot of sacrifices so that we would have a good life. Some career opportunities he passed up, took some jobs he didn't want to take in the Coast Guard, and he wasn't real happy all the time, but he had a goal of retiring at a certain age, and along the way having some great Christmases with his kids. And I can tell you, he accomplished all of that, and he was taken from us too soon, but he did get to enjoy his retirement for a while. And my mom was taken from us about 6 years ago, and she was always big on Christmas too. She had this saying: if I had all the money in the world, you would have everything you ever wanted, because I just love seeing you happy. So I don't have all the money in the world, and my mom and my dad are no longer with me, so it's up to me to make this happen, even though they were the ones that gave away the Superpowers collection in the first place. But I forgive them. So we know what I'm collecting. We have a concept of what kind of budget I'm looking at, and we've talked a bit about why I want to collect. So let's talk display options and the practicality of this, right? So when you have something, like a toy, you either want to play with it or put it on display, or a little bit of both. Sometimes things are fully boxed, sometimes they're loose, sometimes there's a combination. So for me, my philosophy is, whenever possible, I want to buy new and sealed. With blister cards, I'm going to open them as carefully as I can, because I want to save them. In the case of a boxed figure, I want to save the box. I want to flatten it if I can, and put them aside. But to keep the figures out loose the majority of the time, play with them and display them, and so forth. Now, currently, I don't have a place suitable for displaying figures, so everything I have is still packaged. But bear in mind, I'm not that guy. I'm just trying to do a nice hybrid of keeping things nice and having a place to put them. Because I'm living very small right now, so that I can build up towards buying a house in the relatively near future. So if you hear me whinge about that in future videos, just remind me it's all for the greater good. Well, today I can say that I have a few Marvel Legends figures. I can say that I have my eye on some Motu Origin stuff, which I'll be getting some of it next weekend, and I'll start in earnest getting that moving forward. And as far as the Superpowers collections go, I do have 2 figures on the way. I'm not going to say from who, because I'm going to do a whole video about it. But I have 2 figures coming, and they weren't the 2 that I would normally have expected to start with, but they were in such good condition at a good price from a good person, couldn't pass them up. So I've got the makings for all of them. But right now, I do have some Marvel stuff that I want to show you and just kind of talk through where my head is at, okay? This is the very first Marvel Legends figure that I ever purchased. This was from last year. It's a Stan Lee signed Marvel Legends, and it's a really great figure. I had decided initially that, nah, I want to collect a whole bunch, but having a Stan Lee figure is symbolic and it kind of represents the whole character line. So I was really enthusiastic to get that figure. And I got it, and I put it up on the shelf, and I've loved looking at it ever since. But there's always been this nagging thing in the back of my head, well, what else is there? Once I decided that I was going to start collecting Marvel Legends, I looked around, looked at several different websites and so forth, and got a feel for what I want. I went ahead and said, okay, since I'm starting from scratch, even though I already had Stan, it's like I gotta find a Spider-Man, a tenable Spider-Man of some kind first. That was the first thing. And I looked, and I looked, and I looked, and I looked. All the previous versions of Spider-Man within the Legends series at that scale were going for crazy amounts of money at that point. I was looking at variants. I was looking at one point, I was even looking at other licensed lines, bootlegs. So there was a bunch of different things floating around. I was like, what am I going to do? And I came across an Iron Spider in the Avengers line. It's not crazy complicated. It's not the best figure at all. But the price was right. And I said, well, it's a start. It's a start. But it comes with some caveats. This is my carded Iron Spider from the Avengers line. Has the Hasbro logo on it. And there's a small problem with the packaging. If you look at the card back, you can see it that it's bent in, and there's some tape on the back. So I don't know if it came away and they just taped it to try and fix it, or if they opened it for whatever reason and then taped it shut. I have a suspicion that this was opened and taped back up, because I have a suspicion that this might be a partial knockoff. And let me show you what I mean. Look at the head sculpt and how the coloring is different from the rest of the body to a certain degree. It's subtle, but it is there. So I'm not sure. In good faith, I'd love to think that this is certainly original and that the packaging is unfortunate. Whatever the case may be, I didn't pay a lot of money. I like the figure, and it's fine. At the end of the day, it's fine. Paid $15. Totally worth it. By this point, the seal is broken. I was looking online, comparing, contrasting prices and different figure variants and things like that, trying to decide what I was going to prioritize while still trying to keep in mind that a lot of current figures seemed to be raising in value here and there. One of them was Firestar. The other one was Jonah Jameson, although he is holding his value a little bit. He's okay. But I was worried about not being able to get a Firestar at retail price. I was able to find a very good deal on GameStop for both of those figures, meaning I just paid retail, and I was perfectly happy with it. So I went ahead, got those, and they came. Really great figures. Let me show you. This is my Jonah Jameson figure. Aside from some scuffing on the front of the bubble, he's in really good shape. Perfect. Not a thing wrong with him. Love the packaging. Not a huge fan of the 90s Spider-Man logo in general, but that's okay. This is a great throwback figure, and was happy to get him at the price that I did. So now I don't have to worry about old JJ getting expensive on me. Now, because I'm a huge mark for Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, despite favoring the 81 solo cartoon, how can you not have a Firestar in your collection? This is a minty, beautiful figure. Got the swappable heads with different hair. You've got Miss Lion in there. Exchangeable hands, fire effects, like it's great. Even look at the back card. That's the apartment from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That's cool. You got this vibrant back cover art just to catch your eye. It's just really, really cool stuff. So, had to have it. Had to have it. The problem is I'm having a hard time finding an Iceman worth a damn at the right price. That is the rub. This is what tends to happen with collecting of any kind. If there's a trifecta of something, that third one's always going to be the one you're like, oh. But that's par for the course with collecting, right? Like, these are things that happen. That's part of the excitement of it. So, speaking of excited, let me show you a figure that I've always wanted a decent one of. I've seen a few come and go, and I've just passed them up, and I happened to nail down this one from my good friends over at entertainmentearth.com. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This comes in a tremendous outer box. I'm pretty sure that Hasbro makes these, but I cannot be certain. It does have Hasbro logos on it, along with all the disclaimers, so I'm inclined to think this is a Hasbro thing, but it came in this. And if Hasbro ships them out like this, which I honestly don't know, if they do, almost no one else gives you this box. So this might be an Entertainment Earth thing. I don't know. But this is such a great box. And you open this up, you have a figure nice and tightly packed in here. And this is, without a doubt, the most immaculate figure card I've ever seen in my entire life. Look at this. And he is a beautiful figure. Just beautiful. There's a Legends version of this that is a little bit, has a darker color palette, which is very nice. But this is a nice blend between realistic, comic, and cartoon aesthetics to really just give me all the nostalgia and make me feel like I'm buying something worth the money. It's a great figure. Cannot say enough good things about it. I will give Hasbro a lot of credit for keeping the majority of all of these Marvel lines in the same scale so you can mix and match based upon your aesthetic. If you want to go with MCU, comic book, cartoon, whatever, most of them are available to you in some form or another. Me, I like to mix and match because I think there's different variants of every character that I prefer over the others. So it'll take time, but I'm going to get my basics. You know, I want to get my Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I want to get some of the OG Avengers. I'm going to dabble a little bit in the MCU stuff, but I'm not going to go nuts. I don't see myself buying a whole set of, say, X-Men figures. Even though I love the X-Men and I love Wolverine, I'm not there. Like, I'm pretty much Spider-Man and the Avengers, Fantastic Four when they come out with a set that I like. The only Fantastic Four member that's been out recently that I like is The Thing, and you can't find him anywhere. I'm sure there'll be a billion variants of him and the rest of the Fantastic Four once that movie gets cast and starts filming. It's being developed now, so I'm not worried about that. Same thing with the X-Men. Maybe it's a subconscious thing that I don't want to dabble with the X-Men stuff until I see what they're doing MCU-wise. So that bears fruit. I know that when Moon Knight comes out, I'm going to very much want some figures of him because I loved him in the comic book. And this new Disney Plus version looks pretty damn cool. But time will tell. Time will tell. Now that I've done the legwork of figuring out what I want to collect and how I want to go about it and, you know, why it means something to me, I want to give you some tips and things that I've learned along the way and some friends have told me as well. A few small things. You want to be patient above all else. Impulse buys are a killer. If it's at or below retail price and you can afford it, that's fine. What I'm talking about are these inflated prices that happen as pre-order bubbles start to go. Entertainment Earth, I know I've mentioned it before, they're good at allowing you to pre-order an item before they get the shipment in, even if it's like a second shipment of the same thing, which is very nice. It allows you to keep your retail pricing and be patient at the same time. So I recommend that. Any place that allows you to do that's pretty good stuff. So be patient. Also, you want to make sure that your friends and loved ones are kind of in on the situation, because you don't want to be in a situation where someone's going to great lengths to help you with your collection, only to get you something that you don't want or that they spent too much money on. So the way that I handle that is I just tell people, try not to buy me something from a collection standpoint. If there's something that I'm really pining for that I just can't justify for myself, I might put it on like a public wish list through Amazon or something. And if people want to purchase me something off of that, that's fine. or I encourage people to think outside the box, because part of the fun of this is doing it myself. So I don't expect anyone to give me any gifts about that sort of thing. I got some great figures for my birthday. I got a great Godzilla figure from the Godzilla vs. Kong line, and one of the current alien xenomorphs. Not something I would have walked into a store to buy, but I'm a huge fan of both properties, and to have them as a gift was really great. So by saying, don't get me any of this stuff, they had to get creative, and they got me some stuff I really enjoy, even if it is something I wasn't thinking of getting for myself. So you want to make sure that people are aware of what's going on. I also advise you to network with like-minded people through Discord servers, Reddit threads, social media, whatever. If you have friends that you know dabble in collecting, bend their ear, like see what's going on, because a lot of times your best deals will always be in person most of the time, especially when you can establish relationships with people on some level. So I encourage you to go to local stores, even if they're big box retail, and get to know the folks that work in these departments. It may pay off. Mom and pop stores are a way better option most of the time. They tend to take very good care of the stock. It can only help you. My biggest piece of advice is have fun with it. These are toys. You play with toys. And the prospect and process of collecting should be as fun as playing with them. It should be. So whether you're buying or selling, try to keep that in mind. We're all here to have a good time. And we don't last forever, and neither do those figures. So we might as well have a blast. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you'll check out all the channels that I talked about, and I hope to see you at Retropalooza Houston next weekend. It's going to be so much fun. Can't wait to talk about the Game Chasers movie. We'll see you again on another video, but for now, the toy grind comes to a halt. Until next time, cheers.